Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. In today's video we're going to be discussing the market and how it's exactly cooling off, who's benefiting, and who's taking the fumble here. Alright guys, if you haven't already, do subscribe, drop a comment, hammer on the like button. Alright guys, Ethereum's been pretty hot the past couple of days. Unfortunately, it's starting to kind of cool down a little bit, so is funding, but it still looks rather decent. So let's dive into our map here. So looking at our charts, you can see this is the daily. We've been kind of bouncing in between, like in the middle channel here, especially when we're discussing the channels we have where it kind of hung out on the bottom and jumped up, got into the top, but still kind of moving here. But it looks like it has reached this top here. Now, we're not saying that it's exactly definite here, but it is a cautionary point because it is kind of starting to not look so fantastic. You should be rather cautious at this point moving on, because we've had a really good run. When we're speaking of the daily graphs here, you can see that, I mean, honestly, it's just been kind of climbing. Of course, we had some kind of this pattern with like two green, two red, two green, two red, right? This pattern, so it's kind of like making everybody a little bit nervous, but it is not as bad as you've seen, but I would be cautious in this way. So it could potentially go down if we're kind of moving up. As long as we're moving up in the upward channel and it continues to look bearish, it's fantastic. Bullish. But if it's looking a little bearish, and that's what we're having here when we're looking at the daily, right? So like yesterday and today, it's kind of like not so hot. But the next couple of days will really kind of confirm this or not. Of course, I don't think it's going to drop out, bottom, completely fall out of the sky, but it is starting to cool off a little bit. All right, so it is standing today at $4,725. The weekly, of course, the weekly looks fantastic. It looks beautiful, plenty of green, but it is cooling off, and I think that the next couple of days is really going to impact that weekly, right? So it's not like the past couple of weeks, right, where it's just completely exploding, but it is what we have, right? If we compare the two with Ethereum and Bitcoin, for example, you can see here that, of course, even Bitcoin is kind of cooling off as well, having some bleeding going on as well, and we'll get to Bitcoin in just a moment, but you can kind of see the pattern here. Of course, Ethereum is absolutely doing a lot better than Ethereum. Ethereum's doing a lot better than Bitcoin, but and essentially it could start to kind of tremble because the entire market is kind of taking a little ice bath a little bit, so it's nothing too bad. So when we're looking at the different coins here, when we're speaking about Cardano, of course, Cardano has been in my mouth a lot here lately. Not a very good taste for me, but it is what we have, right? Now, we had Cardano where it's just completely moving sideways and then down, like this downward angle, right? So when we're moving up here from September, right? So when we had that moment, it's just kind of coming down, right? And then just kind of flowing out, bouncing on and off key support. And then, of course, we made a new one, but it did start taking a rise here in the last couple of days, but it is starting to cool back down too as well. So as we called in the last video, it can start to come back up, right? So today it's sitting at $2.20, which is actually a lot better than the $1.90, $1.80 that it was kind of sitting at for a couple of days, which made everybody nervous. So it is cooling off, and it can, and it still needs to kind of make some more work. Right, so it is looking a little bullish, but on the daily, it's not so hot. We do have a little candle here, but not what we want to see, right, for Cardano. So still not too hot, still pretty ugly. When we're looking at the weekly as well, of course, the weekly is much better than what we had the past couple of weeks, right? So much better, so it's kind of picking up, but it is still cold, so don't hold your breath for that. Bitcoin, I promised about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's cooling off. So let's see, November 8th, it was an all-time high, right? Great. An all-time high, but it is kind of moving down a little bit. Now, I don't expect it to really like go much higher, but, you know, the past couple of days what we had is this pattern, right? Green, 3 red, green, 3 red. That is typically the pattern that's showing now. But it could be 3 red and then 1 up again, but I don't really see it quite yet either. So it's still kind of like it came up, but it's kind of taking that step backwards. So watch out for that as well. But the funding is a little bit different too. So the funding's not so much into it as well, but it is cooling off as expected. Axis Infinity. So Axis is like doing pretty good too. It reached its high recently, that all-time high back here a couple of days ago. Right, it reached all-time high, and then of course we had that ugly candle, but it is starting to make a playback too. Now the ascending channel that we have going on, looks like if it does continue to go up, it's possibly going to hang in the bottom half for a little bit, which this is about where we really want it to be. So we do want it to be in the upper channel of the ascension. Of course, we don't want to hang out too much bottom. The past month or so, back in October, it was moving a little sideways, right, for a little while. So as it's moving sideways, nothing good comes from it, right? But we did have that ascension. Finally, it did kind of start a little rally, but we will be able to see as well. But again, I'm going to repeat myself probably 100 times today, but it is cooling off as well. Litecoin's doing fantastic though. That is one of the coins that is doing a bonus here. It is kind of benefiting from everything. So Litecoin is actually rallying it up now. It is looking very, very bullish, which is very beautiful too, especially when we consider the time that we had from that lowest point here in September to compare to today. So in September, it was around what, $145, considering even for today is 268. So a lot of people that bought into that dip that came in September are actually seeing a lot of good profits. So very good, great job, doing wonderful. As far as the weekly for it as well, still killing it, absolutely just nailing it. So fantastic here as well. We can see that it's just lost for words. So Litecoin is doing really good. We hope that it continues to bounce. And XRP. Now, XRP, when we had this channel here, it is in the upper half of the channel. Fantastic. But it's another one of those coins now that is kind of cooling off. It is a risky coin. It's still very risky, but it is still up, but bleeding out slowly as well. So we do want to kind of keep an eye on it as well. All right, so taking a look at the market in a whole here. So, of course, Bitcoin in the 24-hour period is in the red by 2.13%. 7-day, the weekly is at 552, still pretty good. Ethereum is still good too at the weekly at 3.25%. And the 24-hour period is at 1.55% as well. Now, Cardano, because Cardano's been doing so ugly, the 24-hour period is 0.57%. And the weekly is doing much, much better at 7.65 in the green. So fantastic job as well. Tether is not doing so hot as well. And Solana is doing still great, great, great at 4.96% of the weekly and only 2.16 in the last 24 hours, right? So still pretty good, still doing great, nothing to freak out over, right? But I would expect, honestly, Solana to pass Tether again. So we'll definitely kind of catch that. I expect that soon. It's still very, very close as well. So Solana should pass that, and I would expect it to pass Cardano again too. So it's just kind of cooling off again because that market's kind of making a little fix here. Polkadot as well is kind of going down. It's suffering some blows today. Let's see. Shiba is also dropping off the market now. At the last weekly, it was minus 17.84%, and the daily is at 4.57%. So not doing too great. Now we were just speaking about Litecoin. Litecoin, when we're looking at the weekly, is 29.45%, a strong rally, and 8.42% on the daily. So it's doing pretty good as well. Another coin that's kind of cooling off too is Polygon. At 12.23 in the red on the weekly, and on the 24-hour period is at 1.63% as well. So a lot of them are really cooling off, guys. So we do want to see nothing to like really freak out. So it's not the top, it's not the bottom for everything. So it's depending on funding right now. So just kind of keep an eye on that as well. And one more, Axie Infinity, as we're just going over. So showing you on the weekly, it is 10.73% and 0.42 of the daily. So 10 for the week, which is still pretty great. It's still doing pretty good. So just keep an eye on these coins as well. So the market's just kind of cooling off, relaxing a little bit, right? So watch your coins. Don't don't freak out, of course, as always, and we'll be able to tell something in the next couple of days. So, all right, gentlemen, ladies, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hammer on the like button, and I will catch you on the next video. Thank you for joining me.